The Atoto F7 has that 10.1-inch floating display with Bluetooth capabilities, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. I mean, honestly, pretty much has everything you'd want, and right around $220. I mean, sounds like it's too good to be true. Is it? Typically, when you see these cheaper units like this, you're going to think of them as an Android-based unit. They're very clunky. They're slow to respond. This Atoto F7 is not one of those. This actually uses a Linux-based system, and it's pretty darn quick. And really, it should be, because there's not much actually on the radio itself. Before we get that, let's take a look at the actual outside of this particular unit. If you take a look at the outside, it does have your normal buttons like your home and your next and your power, which does just put it in a sleep mode, and it does have a quick to hit mute button. And those buttons are tactile, and I'll say they feel really good to press. I'm really impressed with the feeling of those. I like that a lot. They don't feel cheap. Now on the back side, there's nothing really too surprising on here with the exception of a Sirius XM radio input. It does have both front and rear camera inputs, and you can actually view those at any time while driving, which is pretty darn cool. I really especially like that rear input, which I'll talk about a little bit later. It does have some inputs on the side for auxiliary. It does have like an SD card slot reader and even a USB reader. The screen itself is 10.1 inches, so it's not going to fit inside your console. It's going to stick out a little bit. And because of that, Atoto has some set screws on there where you can actually adjust the height and the angle at which it sits. So depending on if you're a car and you need it to angle up, or if you're in a truck and maybe you need to angle it down or something, you can do all of that with some screws. And I really do appreciate that. Now, once you have that set to the angle you want, you just screw those down tight and it will be set. As far as hookups, it actually used the exact same wiring harness as my old Atoto unit. So if you have an Atoto unit already installed, you can literally just disconnect that wiring harness and plug this in. It does allow you to use an external microphone, which I always recommend, especially for something like this, if you're going to be using Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, which honestly, I don't see why you wouldn't be using that. I feel like that's the reason why you buy a unit like this. Because this is Linux-based, like I said earlier, there's not much on the actual unit itself. It does have settings. You can adjust your rear camera, you can adjust your guidelines, you can do all of those things, adjust your boot logo, and you can even change the color of the LEDs, the background. You can really customize this however you want. You can easily adjust the sound EQ as well. So if you're one of those guys that really adjust your audio depending on the song that you listen to, well, you can do that pretty darn easily. I mean, these are things that I've come to expect from Atoto, and they do, once again, a great job on that. Because this is geared at being such a big screen, it allows you to really be able to see your directions really well. And that's something that I really appreciated with this particular unit. Now, some of you guys might want to use this for video. Now, it does do, obviously, Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, which is what I usually use. But if you want to put video on it, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto don't allow that. So instead, you got to use something called MirrorLink. And MirrorLink will allow you to wirelessly transmit your videos onto your screen. Now, it doesn't work with every application, things like Netflix, and those don't work. However, it does have a USB slot and a micro SD slot, so you can play video files from there as well. Now, I mentioned that this does use both front and rear cameras. Now, the rear camera has come in handy quite often. I use a rear camera on my vehicle, plugged up the same one I've always used. And one of the things I love about this is it does have live rear view camera. Recently, I had some bags of mulch on a trailer, and I was concerned that they may or may not stay on the trailer. So I just flipped that onto live view, and I could watch it go all the way down while I drove down the road. It was fantastic to be able to just take a glance every once in a while to make sure that nothing was moving around. I really do appreciate that. Of course, you could use that for other reasons, like if someone was riding your tail and you wanted to keep an eye on that. Or maybe you're in a cargo van or big truck where really your rear view mirror just doesn't work as well as something like a rear camera would. There are two different ways to use this particular radio. One is just like a normal radio that you would have in your car, just plug it in and just use the built-in apps as is. And you can do that and there's nothing wrong with it. The other way is to do Android Auto. Now with Android Auto, you do have to plug it in with a USB cable, plug it straight into your phone, and it'll pop right up. You can use not only the apps that are on the radio, but then you can also use the apps that Android Auto allows you to use as well. Now, the same can be said with Apple CarPlay. That's the way that I prefer to use this stereo, and I think that's the reason why most people would buy this. I mean, it really makes this a seamless integration. Now, you can use your assistant like normal. Okay, so if you have Google, just go ahead and say your keywords like "Okay Google," and it'll pop up and allow you to text people. It'll allow you to do hands-free calling. It'll even allow you to navigate to wherever you want to go, and it'll just start navigating for you. It really saves you a lot of hassle and keeps your hands on the wheel and your eyes on the road instead of where they shouldn't be. Now, I've used this thing for quite a while, and I have really come to really enjoy it. In fact, I like it a lot better than the one that I had before that fit inside the dash. Now, there are a couple caveats to that. Depending on where your radio is, it might actually come in the way of some of your vents. Now, you're going to want to pay attention to that because it does stick out a little bit further. Now, I put mine all the way down, and it really doesn't bother my vents at all. But it's something to keep in mind depending on where your vent location is. My wife didn't really like the bigger screen. I loved it. I think it's great. Now, after she used it for a while, she did start to really come around and really enjoy it. And I think that's going to be the same for a lot of people. It is pretty big. It's like a tablet sitting there. So at first, it might take some time to get used to. A couple other things that you might want to be aware of. The screen itself, because it's so large, it can have some type of glare. In fact, there's quite a bit of glare, and you can see it in some of the videos and pictures that I took where you can see a reflection of me or the camera equipment on those. That is something to keep in mind. It was never a problem as far as like driving down the road and seeing anything, but it is something to keep in mind. It will have some glare on it. I also wasn't a huge fan of where they decided to put their auxiliary cable, the USB. It does keep things out of the way. I do appreciate that it's on the driver's side, but over there on the side is not the easiest to get to once it's installed. But probably my biggest gripe was actually the USB cable that you plug up the Android Auto to. When you take a look at it, there's no way to disconnect it from the unit, or at least none of the ways that I could figure out. And because of that, you'd have to make a bigger hole in the USB end. That's going to be pretty problematic for some people because there's no real way to flush mount this unless you just kind of stick it inside like your glove box or something like that. Now, I have a 3D printer, so I'm probably going to 3D print something to make it flush mount. And definitely the one thing that has disappointed me the most. Now, for those of you who watch my channel, you know the last Atoto unit, the one thing I did not like is that the USB cable that connected Android Auto did not do fast charging. This one does. So thank you, Atoto, for listening to us and implementing that. Now, there's one other gripe that some people may have. I don't have it because I don't really listen to the radio. But if you're still one of those people that really loves to listen to the radio and do a lot of searching, well, there's a problem there. When you play the radio and you connect to Android Auto, you have to press the home button to get back to the radio and seek channels if you're looking for a specific channel. Now, if you're not looking for a specific channel and you just do a bunch of seeking, you can just press the seek buttons on the front of the radio. So what do I think about it? And this head unit is right around 220 bucks. And at 220 bucks, I love it. I mean, I think it's fantastic. I mean, if you're a big Android Auto, Apple CarPlay person, I don't think you can really go wrong with a unit like this. It's just, I mean, really your phone does most of the work for you. And the display is great for what it is. It's fantastic. I haven't had any hiccups with it yet. So for me, it's a buy at that price range. However, if you're not really into the 10.1 inch screen, then that's where this might become less of a buy, because the reason being is you can start getting into like your Pioneers and your cheap entry level, you know, name brand ones right around the $300 mark. So, you know, if you really wanted to stretch your money and go a little bit more, you could get one of those name brands. However, you're going to get a much smaller screen. You're probably going to get like a 7-inch screen, which between a 7 and 10.1 inch, it doesn't sound like a lot. It is a lot of real estate. Now, when I first started this review, I thought for sure I'd probably prefer to save my money and go with something more like a Pioneer or another name brand. And honestly, I don't think I would. I really have fallen in love with that bigger screen. I didn't think that was going to be the case at the beginning. I thought maybe it might be a little too cumbersome. I was really concerned that it was going to get in the way of the vents. So I really love the fact that I was able to move that to a position where that was not problematic. But in general, just the size of that screen really has made a huge difference and just the usability of the unit. It allows me to be able to see my maps and my directions much easier. And even using programs like Pandora or even the phone, the buttons are just much bigger and it just makes it a little bit easier to use. So all things said and done, I really like this unit, and I think that it's a definite buy for someone that's looking for a budget style head unit in this price range. Now, some of you guys are going to ask about the sound quality. The sound quality is adequate. There's nothing really wrong with it. There's nothing bad with it. There's nothing great with it. It's not a sound quality head unit. It sounds like a fairly basic normal head unit would, and I definitely wouldn't tell you not to get it based off the sound quality. All right, guys, this is Toyd's DIY Audio, and I'm out. So I was thinking I should probably tell you what's going on behind the scenes. You guys have been wondering. I got some speakers right over here that you might want to check out. They're going to be up for review very shortly. These are the Mookie. Built-in amplifier, 3-way, mid, whoops, tweeter, nope, wrong side. Tweeter, mid, woofer, port. I got these coming up soon. Also got an awesome guitar amplifier build coming up. I think you guys are going to really like that. It's going to be the speaker, the amplifier, everything all built in one. Really excited to bring that to you. And the CSS sub is coming up soon too. So if you've been interested in that SDX12, which you should be, it is a very, very nice subwoofer. I guess that's a spoiler alert. Check it out. Also, Monday, 7 p.m. Keep an eye out for Sound Advice. We're either going to be on my channel, Hi-Fi Vegas, or DIY Audio Guys. And you guys want to check that out because we have some really cool topics coming up. And as always, if you have some topics that you want to share with us or you think that we should be sharing on Sound Advice or on this channel, check out the blog and the forum at toydsdiyaudio.com. As for now, this is Toyd's DIY Audio, and I'm out.